Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Digital Masters Podcast. Today we have on David Deutsch. I'm super excited to have him here. He is a proven leader in the copywriting space, has a long proven career, has generated over $1 billion for his clients, and we're going to be talking about how to be a better copywriter. And on that note, I don't normally promote things on this show, but I want you to head over to his website. He has a course and he also has a group where he is taking copywriters to the next level. And I wanted to pay special attention to that because if you're going to learn from somebody, you want to learn from this guy. Go check it out. Otherwise, let's get into this. I'm super excited. Let's do it. What is going on, David Deutsch? Happy to have you on the show today.
Oh, great to be here.
Yeah, so you are one of the most modest marketers that I've come across. We actually, we got connected on TikTok and you actually saw one of my videos and you booked a call with me. And then I was asking you what you do and you're like, oh, I'm just a copywriter. And then it was, it was over time that I realized that you had sold over $1 billion worth of products and that you're a pivotal copywriter in the space. And then a lot of the people that I know already knew who you were. And then I started doing research on you, and you worked with Ogilvy and Mathers, and
Ogilvy and Mather, yeah.
yeah. So I was hoping we could start there, and just
Sure.
talk a little bit about that early experience that you had, and kind of how that shaped you.
Yeah, I mean, it was great to get my start there. Ogilvy is like a teaching hospital, where they actually train people. David Ogilvy, of course, is a pivotal character in the history of advertising, was a great teacher, great at codifying his principles of advertising. But, most importantly, he believed that advertising wasn't about winning awards, which was contrary to a lot of the dogma of ad agencies at the time and maybe still currently. But he believed it was about selling. And so, he is where I first found out about people like Claude Hopkins or John Caples and some of the seminal people in kind of in direct, that a lot of direct people in direct response take seriously. In fact, Ogilvy said direct response or direct mail was his first love and secret weapon.
Direct mail, yeah. Yeah, it seems like.
So,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say it really prepared me for the world of direct response, which is, very accountable and everything gets measured and isn't as much about branding.
Right. Well, tell me what do you mean by like winning award versus selling? Like, tell me what do you mean by that?
Well, a lot of times advertising, traditional advertising, ad agency advertising is done in a way where, I mean, there's a natural tendency to want to show off, to want to win awards, right? To want to get something, a piece
awards,
for your portfolio, right?
Gotcha.
To want to do creative work. And sometimes what's creative and what wins awards and what looks good in your portfolio isn't necessarily what sells the product or what, there's a joke about, someone, they watch a commercial and they say, boy, that was a great commercial. That's the greatest commercial I've ever seen. And you say to them, what was the product? And they say, I don't know, some battery or something like that, So you can entertain people, but you have to entertain people in a way where they come away remembering the brand and something positive about the brand and where it increases sales.
Where someone actually takes action and buys something.
Right.
And so how was it, what was it that you were learning there to really help you sell? Like what were some of the insights that you were learning that helped you not just take that creative approach and just focus on the product, and how do you sell it?
Well, I think part of that is based on response, right? How do you get a response to something, right? How do you set it up in a way where someone has to perform an action? They have to send for something. There has to be, maybe there's a coupon in the ad, right? Ad agencies don't like to do ads with coupons in them, right? When they're really creative ad agencies. Nobody likes to have an ad in their portfolio with a coupon, right?
Why is it? Is it just because it's not sexy or something?
Yeah, it's not sexy. It's very, very packaged goods kind of thing, right? But you want to get that response because the first encounter with a prospect may not even be a purchase. It might be a request for more information. So it was really that mentality of provoking an action, I think, is the first thing. And then the other is, just like we talked about that commercial, right, where they couldn't remember the name. It's got to be memorable in a way where you remember the product. So if it's something that's sold in stores, you remember to go buy it. Or if it's an ad for, Stephen Pope, you remember the name Stephen Pope and go, look him up or something like that, right? And it's gotta really give benefits that are important to people, right? Not just make you laugh with talking frogs or, funny things happening to people, but to really go, wow, that really looks like that would help me either avoid something in my life I want to avoid or move towards something in my life that I want to get.
Right. Yeah, I like that word wow, because I think that the same thing with content. It's like when you're creating content, you really have to make people say, wow, I'm glad I saw that. Like you want people,
Right.
because and especially with content too, that's also when people are more engaged. That's when it's becomes shareable and people are pushing it out into their own networks is when they really have that kind of aha moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people pay me a lot of money to coach them in copywriting, but really, if they would just ask themselves, would this make me go wow if I read it? That's like 50% of what I do is I look at it and I go, does it make me go wow? And if it doesn't, to try to figure out, okay, how can we make, whatever it is, right? Like, wow, I didn't know that. Wow, that's something I want. Wow, that's going to help me avoid something I don't want. Because, there's so much out there. If you can't get a little wow out of someone, they're just going to go on to the next thing.
Right. It's so funny that you say that because when I'm coaching clients on creating content, whether it's like an individual video or this podcast, so the first thing that's at the top of that like little script or whatever is this thing I call a wow statement. Mm-hmm. And I instruct them to go through that and say, wow, I'm glad I saw this. And now that I saw this, I know this. And because I know this, I'm going to do this or not do that. And I now feel better because of that. And I have them craft that. And what's so interesting is that that's the piece that everyone skips. They all skip that piece and go right into the content writing. And I know for sure, like where I've gotten right now, it's all because I just kept focusing on that wow statement because that provides all the focus for everything you're going to write.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great statement of how to do advertising.
That's interesting. So
it's like you want the consumer to come away going, wow, I didn't know this and now this.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of what marketing is it's like people end up wanting to just produce a lot or like you're saying, try to be flashy or creative. But it also it seems to be the magic is slowing down, getting really intentional and being aware of what's going on and just giving your head the space to really just describe things in clear, simple language that people are going to understand and take something away from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, simplicity is a big thing. I mean,
So you talked about the call to action, and that makes sense. How do you end up kind of thinking through the description of the benefits? I think people get caught up on that too. Like, how do you describe? I know this is kind of a broad question, and it's not. But how do you just describe a product in simple terms and the benefits of it?
Well, I think you've got to think in terms of benefits. You've got to kind of push your thinking, right? Like you said, people don't want to do the wow statement. People don't want to sit down and go, okay, what are the benefits of this product, right? Because, the first two or three are easy, but then it starts to get, further. And then also you need to push yourself. Well, first of all, you need to distinguish between features and benefits, right? A friend of mine, Alan Rosenspan, has a great lecture that he gives where he takes a pencil, right? And it's like, okay, this is a pencil. Like the feature of it is that it's yellow. But what's the benefit of that? Well, the benefit of that is that if you need to write something, it's yellow and it stands out on your desk, right? So that's the benefit of that. It's beveled, right? It's got flat, it's got 8 sides or whatever it is, right? That's a feature. It's got that shape to it. But what's the benefit? The benefit is it won't roll off your desk, right? Because it's got the flat sides, so it can't roll.
Right.
So, it's got an eraser on it. Well, that's nice, but what's the benefit? Well, the benefit is that, anytime you make a mistake, it's really easy to just flip the thing over and you can get rid of your mistake. You can't do that with a pen. Can't, So you've got to, in the same way, you've got to be able to translate whatever your product is, whatever your service is, beyond features and into benefits, right? And then you've got to take that and even what's the benefit of the benefit, right? Like, yeah, you and I help people make more money, but people don't want just more money. That's just numbers on a spreadsheet or piles of paper, right? They want the things money can buy. They want the recognition money can buy. They want, they want to be good providers for their family. So those are kind of, the benefits of the benefits.
Right. So is there an exercise that you sometimes work people through to help them kind of like push them to that next thing? Like how do you get them to keep thinking down those paths and take that next leap?
Yeah, just creating a simple matrix, simple table of it, okay, this is the feature, this is the benefit, this is the benefit of the benefit, right? You can do this. And that means, right, you'll never have to worry about running out of money. And that means you'll have peace of mind, right? And that means, and your family will, your spouse will think you're doing a good job. You'll be a hero to your family. You may not want to say these things in your ad, right, directly, but some of them you might, and they're there if you need them, right, to pick from. And then, okay, emotional benefit, right? Maybe the next row is emotional benefits. The pencil enables you to write and, say what you're thinking. But the emotional benefit is you'll be able to express yourself, right? You'll be able to have the satisfaction of maybe writing poems or, whatever that emotional component of that is.
So like kind of describing like what the future, like what will they be doing in the future because of this product?
Right. What will help them envision their future?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting. It's like a lot of the time when I'm helping people, it's easy to help somebody else through it. But sometimes for whatever reason, when you're doing it yourself, like you can really get caught up and lost in copywriting and all that stuff.
Yeah, well, it's hard when you're, as they say, when you're inside the jar to see the label, right? And so it's hard to write about yourself. It's hard to even evaluate your own writing because you've written it and you saw it being pieced together. You saw that it's not quite what you wanted. It didn't come out the way you thought. If there's something wrong with it, then you've got to put the effort into changing it. And who wants to do that, right? So you've got a sort of a bias in terms of how you look at it. And plus the curse of knowledge, right? You know the product, you know the market, you know like too much stuff. That's why it's good to do sort of hacks to get around that, right? You let it sit for a week. You look at it with fresh eyes. You try to look at it as if you're the consumer, right? You got to kind of almost do like method acting and become someone else. Maybe literally give it to someone else to read. We're kind of embarrassed about showing stuff we've written to other people, but nothing like that. Someone reads it and they go, I don't believe this part here put me to sleep. Or they read it and they go, wow, where can I get this?
Right.
And say, okay, then
right.
You're good.
Yeah. One thing that's interesting about that I've noticed too is that the copywriting can also really become a sales script as well. Like, so what I did is just like, when I was on sales calls, I would just literally almost read the same thing that was and people didn't always know that I did this, but I would literally just read the same thing that they were attracted to or that was on my LinkedIn profile. Right. It was just basically, this is what I do. And I would just kind of watch them and see where they got distracted or if they didn't quite understand, or if they asked me a question, or if they said, or do you mean this? Did you mean this? Mm-hmm. And then I would kind of mark down like, what did they say there? And then I would kind of be able to, and then you have a group, right? Where you will actually, people can bring in their copywriting,
Right.
and you just on the call with them, you will go through it and kind of help pick it apart.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so helpful to people because they get like an outside point of view of it. And that's I think the key to becoming a better writer is to get that kind of outside feedback from someone that I can immodestly say knows what they're doing.
Right.
But even feedback from other people in the group is good, right? Because a lot of times within the group there'll be someone that's like, well, I'm the target for this, right? I'm a SaaS manager, or I'm looking to buy a new mattress, and like this would never. I would never believe this claim, or this is what I'm looking for. Nobody does this.
Right.
I think copywriting is mostly, research, feedback. Once you get an initial draft on paper.
Right. Yeah, and then I guess what's also beneficial of that too is that if when you're reading your own stuff over and over, like you don't have like a blank slate. And I feel like sometimes with copywriting, what you really want is like a blank slate and somebody processing each line and just making sure
Yeah.
that at every step it's understood and it's not confusing. And you just want that blank slate to be able to take that in and say, "Oh, I got stuck here. I'm on line 3 here and I'm lost now."
Yeah, yeah. I think make sure every step of the way is clear. Make sure every step connects to the next step, right? A lot of times you look at copy and it's like you got to really work at the beginning of each step to figure out, okay, there's a new subject. Okay, now we're talking about this. Um, Words can mean different things, right? You use the word since, and it can mean a lot of different, you could go a lot of different places with that word, right? And sometimes people don't really understand that if someone goes off in a wrong direction, then they have to kind of go back a little bit, right? And go, oh, okay, I see, how he meant it like this, right? He doesn't mean it for time. He doesn't mean it in a time sense, since the Reformation. He means in a kind of a sense of like, since this is true, that is true,
Right.
right? But when you see the word since, you don't know it. And so you've got to write in a way where the reader doesn't get confused, right? You got to ground him right away. You got to right away make him know where he's going, where the sentence is going. Not like, so many times someone will do something in the beginning of a sentence, right? And then the verb will be at the end of the sentence. The boy, doing this, doing that, went to see his mother, right? So it's like, oh my God, I got to remember
All this
the
stuff.
boy all the way up to went to see his mother through all this stuff,
Right.
right?
So if the brain has to go back and think and reconstruct, then
Right.
you've already kind of lost. I mean, maybe they do it, maybe they don't, but you don't want them to have to even do that.
Yeah, that's why a lot of times the best writing you'll see when you read it, it's just simple declarative sentences, right? Just simple. The boy went to see his mother, and then this, and then that. Almost like Hemingway is like an extreme example of that. But that's why people love Hemingway. He's so simple,
Right.
right? He doesn't write sentences like Faulkner that no one can read, or that take a lot of work to get through.
Yeah, and I think that's hard for people too because when, especially like in headlines, they want to explain the whole product in the headline.
Yeah, yeah.
But
A lot of copywriting and a lot of marketing too is just being willing to sacrifice things. Like you don't have to have all that. You've got a lot of good things to say about your product. You don't have to have them all in the headline. All you have to do in the headline is get them to read the next line,
right,
right? You're not going to sell them in the headline.
right. Yeah, you haven't established any sort of trust or proof or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Just get their attention. Make them go, wow.
And most people,
Don't
and,
make,
and depending on the price, most people are going to do, if it's interesting, most people are going to continue to do more research after that anyway,
right.
especially the higher the price. Like people are going to, especially if you're selling consulting or something, people are going to investigate and learn more about you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's why we get them in a funnel and, nurture them.
Right. Yeah, cool. So you've obviously been really successful in your career, and this is a question that I've kind of been learning along the way as well, or not a question, but something that I've been learning, and I just wanted your take on it. But it's like, so you've had a lot of success, and there's this aura around copywriting that if you just make it just perfect, it can sell anything. But what I've also learned with working with people is that when I work with good products or good people, good consultants, people that have a really good product, it's easier to help them and get them good results, which kind of helps me look better as well. Like if there are certain people,
Right.
there are
Right.
certain people that I, there's nothing I can really do. Like I can't change certain things about them, and so I'm just not going to be able to get that person good results. So how if somebody's getting into copywriting and that's going to be their path, how do they kind of navigate picking good clients so that when they write good copy and they're getting better at copywriting, that it's kind of supported, right? Because if they find good clients and do good work for them, they're going to get better results for them. How do you help people think that through and navigate it?
Yeah. Well, at a certain point in your career, you just kind of need the practice, right? You want to have a lot of opportunities to write because a lot of getting better at writing is just writing, right? And you may not be able to afford to turn down clients and try to get a client with a product that you're really crazy about. But you do want to be careful, right? You don't want to write for products that you don't feel good about. It's a little bit like, maybe this isn't the best analogy, but it's a little bit like being a lawyer, right? Whether your client is innocent or guilty, whatever you think about it, he deserves the best possible defense,
Sure.
right? So otherwise the whole criminal justice system falls apart if lawyers are going, I'm not going to take this guy on, he's guilty, or I don't like him.
Right, sure.
It can't work like that, right? So in a way, as a copywriter, it's our job to present whatever it is in the best possible light, right? Because there's probably a match out, someone for everyone, they say. It's the same kind of thing. For someone, it's a perfectly good product that they may need. And it's kind of our job to, help them find whatever the market is
Right.
for their product. And, it's even our job to help them improve their product,
Yeah,
which is, of course, a lot easier if it's a, info product, right?
An
You can
info
say,
product.
oh, you should add some videos, you should add some reports, you should, do this and do that.
Yeah, that's kind of like the interesting thing that I really learned. So I grew up another business and it was successful, but I didn't, it was just by doing good work, which, having a good product kind of sells itself. But that was one of the most interesting things that I learned about copywriting and marketing is that if you're interacting with the marketplace and listening, it could literally tell you what the product should be versus
Right.
you going, I mean, you always have to have like an idea of what you want, but if your ears are open and you're just interacting with the marketplace, it will literally tell you what your product actually should be and how to make it better.
Yes.
Assuming
Yeah.
you can deliver on what people want.
And Silicon Valley and places have a whole system for that,
Right.
right? Where you do like what they call an MVP, minimum viable product,
Right.
right? Just get something out there and have people react to it. They go, no, I don't want this. I wish it had this, right? Or whatever it is. And there's so many successful companies, that came into a market thinking the market wanted a certain thing and it didn't, but they were successful because they were able to pivot.
Right.
A lot of companies just fail, but there's a lot of stories of companies like Honda or people like that. They came into the American market and thought the Americans wanted, I don't know, motorcycles or, certain kind of cars. And then they realized, no, they want, what later became the Civic, right? They want a small, inexpensive car, whatever it is.
Right.
But and the market will tell you.
Yeah, but what's interesting, like the startups did that and they mastered it. But in reality, though, it's like it's the same for even like consulting. I mean, that's what the whole high ticket consulting industry is based off of. Like you go to the marketplace with this idea of what you think people want, and you just put it out there, and you get feedback, and you have conversations with people, and you can literally build your product that way. And that's how you end up figuring out what is the real leverage here that I can create that is really gonna what can I really, because the only way you can get leverage is if you really deliver a lot of value in a short amount of time, or something along those lines. And the only way you can kind of figure that out is talking to people. And I think that's when people are starting businesses, especially when they're starting out, that's the hardest part, is that they're too emotionally attached to the idea that they created. And then you spent, I mean, really, you didn't spend a lot of time. You spent a week or two deciding what you're going to do. And then you go out there, and then if somebody doesn't like it or doesn't respond to it, it's too hard to just say, oh, that wasn't, either I didn't describe it right, or it's just not what people want. And then you can just pivot from there. Like, if you think about it, you can go into the marketplace and pivot really fast if you just decide what I'm really concerned with is helping people getting them what they want, and figuring that out and being committed to that versus being committed to whatever business I thought I wanted.
Right. And you're right. Talking to people is a great way to do it. There's a continuum, right? There's talking to people about something that doesn't exist. There's creating something that sort of exists. You can show them a picture, you can show them something, and talk to them about it. There's creating like an actual something, like, right? If you want to do an information product, let me just do something. And it's like, people like it, but they really like this module. So now I know I need to do a project based on this module, a product based on this module.
Yeah.
It's a little bit, I forget what it was. I think it was Twitter maybe, or something, that started out as this, and it might be Twitter and it might be Slack, or it might be some communication thing, right? But it started out as this whole company of something. But part of this company was this communication channel, right? That came along with whatever this product was that they were doing. And nobody particularly liked the product, whatever it was. But they did like this little communication thing within it that enabled you to communicate quickly with each other. And that became either Twitter or Slack. I can't remember which one it was. But that's how one of those things developed. It was this little piece of something that was just, let me just write some code so people can communicate easily. And who knew? That was the thing people really wanted.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's just an important lesson, because if you're committed to creating a business and a really good product, then I think it's a lot easier than if you are committed to creating this one thing that you've decided you want to do.
Right.
Yeah. Especially if you want to charge a lot of money for it.
It's the same thing with writing copy, too. Let the market tell you what copy to write. Go out and talk to people. See what words they use about the problem, right? If you're writing a thing for high blood pressure, how do people talk about high blood pressure? What are they concerned about? Like, you don't know. I don't know about high blood pressure. Do people worry about their blood pressure getting so high they're going to explode? Do people care that they have high blood pressure if they can take drugs to get rid of it? So I need to tell them, hey, those drugs really aren't very good for you. Like how do they talk about it, right? Do they think of it as a disease? Do they think of it as, just a little, it's a number that's a little too high or something? Do they talk about them? Do they suffer? Would they ever say, I suffer from high blood pressure? Like, because I don't want to use that in my copy if they would never say that. And how do they look for a cure? How do they look for a solution?
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I think people get stuck, including me sometimes, is like, people say, yeah, you need to know how, and we were talking about this before, but people say you need to know how people speak about things. But then like you end up having to have a mechanism to go out and have those conversations.
Yeah.
And, whether it's going to an event or having a podcast where you're talking with people, or literally just going to social media and just asking people. You can literally go to LinkedIn and create a poll and create a discussion in the comments. But
Right.
you have to be pretty intentional about doing that. Like you have to set out and then get out of your own way to go figure out those answers.
Yeah.
They're right there. Like literally you can go and have communications with all these people.
Right.
As long as people
Right.
don't think you're trying to sell them. And that might be the case as well, is that when somebody creates a product, they're so eager to sell it, they can't slow down enough just to have a conversation with
Yeah.
someone without pitching them. They got to pitch it. And
Right.
then that person's in a different headspace. They're trying to figure out how do they get out of this conversation. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're
But
not,
as you said earlier, sometimes selling people also tells you
yeah,
how you should be telling them because you see their eyes glaze over or their eyes don't glaze over or they respond, oh, or they respond, wow, I'm interested. Tell me more.
right. But there's like different phases. So like when I first started going, like I did do some outbound kind of like research and sending people messages, but I wasn't saying, hey, buy my product. What I said is I reached out, I said, hey, I'm developing a new product. I have a concept that I put together. I think you'd be really interested in it. I'd love to just get your feedback. And then in that conversation, I think I could give you some really insightful information.
Hmm.
And what was kind of interesting about that is that those conversations always did start as just like an informational thing. But
Yeah.
but when you're asking people these thoughtful questions, they start like the only people that can ask thoughtful questions are people that might actually be able to deliver. And so a lot of the times they would just say, oh, tell me more about what you're doing. And then
Hmm.
sometimes that would kind of gravitate into more of a sales type situation. And then I could get a lot of interesting feedback through that process.
Yeah. And, I think another way too is, just eavesdropping, right? Go on forums, read Amazon reviews of books that relate to high blood pressure or whatever your topic is, right? See what people say, see what their words are.
Yeah. Yeah. That was actually an interesting thing. I had another client and we did that. We went to Google and we just
Hmm.
read all the reviews and we got some really interesting insights from just reading what people were saying. But again, that goes back to just being really intentional with what you're doing.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So I really appreciate you spending the time today to kind of drop some of this vast experience that you have with
Oh,
everybody.
it's great to talk to you.
Yeah, and I would love to chat with you again some other time, and I hope you have a great one.
All right. Thanks. You too.
All right, I'll see ya.